It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Today on the Happy Families Podcast, we're counting down the 5 biggest episodes. It's been a big year on the podcast this year, Kylie, and we're going to count down the 5 most listened to episodes, the 5 biggest episodes, the 5... do you know what? Looking at the list, it's a really practical list of episodes where people are saying, hey, I just need to know what to do. So today we're going to tell you what to do in 5 simple steps. Rather than sharing snippets from our 5 most popular episodes this year, we're going to tell you the title, the episode number. We'll link to them in the show notes so you can go back and have a listen if you want to. But pretty much, here's what the topic was, and here are our best 1 or 2 tips to help you across summer when you've got extra time with the kids and, frankly, probably a bit of extra pressure as well. Let's not pretend that that's not a thing. A couple of tips to help you with the kids. So, Kylie, let's count them down. Let's count from number 5 down to number 1.
In position number 5,
Da-da-da.
episode 1041. Can you believe that we've recorded over 1,000 podcasts?
Yeah, overachievers. That's how we roll. Next year, by the way, we're thinking about dropping some weekend episodes as well, just because we love doing this so much. Anyway, I digress. Episode 1041.
Screens suck. Do you think they listen to it because of the topic, or that's just a really catchy title?
Maybe it's a bit of both. My bias is increasingly obvious here as I look at what's happening in our home, as I doing the homeschool thing with a couple of the kids and looking at the way that screens are ubiquitous. They're absolutely everywhere in everyone's homes and everyone's families. I'm just done with screens. I've got a new phone arriving next year. I don't know if it's going to be practical and usable because I use my iPhone for kind of everything. But I've got this new phone coming called the Light Phone. Light Phone 3 is coming out, and I'm really keen to try it, but I just don't know if it's usable. Anyway, screens suck. My tip for Christmas, my tip for summer holidays.
Throw them in the bin.
Almost. And minimize as much as we can. Just get rid of them. Just say, hey, kids, it's summer. We're going to be outside. We're going to be doing really cool stuff. And the only time we're on screens is when we, as a family, agree that we're all going to watch something or do something together. I just think nobody ever, when you say, hey, what was the best family event, the best time that you can remember having together? Or what was the most awesome thing that you did in the last week? Nobody ever says, oh, last Saturday afternoon when I got to hang out on my phone for 4 hours uninterrupted, that was the best afternoon I can ever remember.
I know you're saying this, but I think that there are going to be so many parents who are listening and thinking,
didn't mind it when I got that guy.
No, this is not practical because my teenage daughter or my teenage son, there is no way they're going to put that down, even for 4 hours of the day.
I got really excited with this whole social media ban with the federal government that's passed through the legislation in the last few weeks. And just the other day, I had this eye-opening, oh no moment when I realised that just because the kids aren't on social media doesn't mean they're not going to be on their screens. It's not like a screen ban for under 16s. It's just a social media ban. I don't think, as you've said, that it's realistic that we can completely minimise screens or chuck them in the bin as much as I would love to. What we can do, though, is set aside specific times where we say, hey, guys, we're going to have screens at these times. We're not going to have screens at these times. We're going to be intentional about our time together. To me, that's the best way forward, the best thing we can do to make sure that we have less impact in our lives and our kids' lives from screens.
It's interesting. I was just talking with a friend of mine about the challenges that our youth are experiencing. It occurred to me that maybe one of the biggest challenges our kids have is our unavailability.
Yeah. And
I don't know how practical it is for families, but over the Christmas break, providing opportunities where you are just 100% available. They're going to pick you over a screen any day.
I've spent a little bit of time on, ironically, some social media on Twitter, X, and what I'm seeing quite clearly, quite profoundly there is a lot of pushback. Now, I know this is going to be controversial and provocative, but there is a strong narrative that is being pushed, particularly in places like Twitter and X, that the increase in autism, the increase in ADHD, the increase in neurodivergence generally, and psychological challenges specifically all comes down to the prevalence of screens in our lives, the ubiquity of screens in our lives. Now, I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon and start waving that flag. I'm not going to become one of those people who says, I don't think this stuff is real and we could get rid of it all tomorrow if we got rid of screens. That's not what I'm saying. What I will say, though, is no matter who I talk to, and no matter what the makeup of your family is, and no matter what the challenges are in your family, I'm yet to come across anyone who says that life is not improved with the reduction in screen time. Bring the quantity of that down, get outside, be together, connect, look in people's eyes, stare at their faces, touch them, bump into them, kick things to them, throw things at them, consensually for fun, and watch what happens. Screens suck. Episode 1041, our 5th most listened to episode of the year. What was number 4?
In position number 4, we have, it's actually the next episode, 1042.
Oh, so maybe we just had a peak week?
We might have.
Or we were on fire
Actually,
that week.
when I'm looking at these numbers, we probably did.
Wow.
Work and homeschool life balance.
Yeah, okay. So essentially, for those of you who are new to the pod, Kylie and I have stepped outside of the mainstream over the last year and a bit. We've done some really different stuff. Pulled our 2 youngest kids out of school. So we've put 4 children through high school now. 4 children from the very first year of school all the way through to the end of school. Our 4th one is finishing year 12 in 2025. But our 2 youngest are currently homeschooling. We love it and we hate it.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, it's so much better for these 2 kids in so many ways than what school was doing to them. But boy, oh boy, does it add complexity, challenge, and a level of stress to our lives that you just don't have when the kids are going off to school. And I know a lot of people who homeschool say it's the easiest thing they've ever done. We haven't found it to be the case. We're pretty intent on making sure the kids are doing plenty of homeschooling. But Kylie, ultimately, when I say we're pretty intent on it, you're the one that's doing it. So I'm going to stay quiet. If there's one thing that you would talk about when it comes to homeschool life balance, combining that with work and just everything that has to be done, what would it be?
Keep the main thing the main thing.
Oh, I like that. The main thing.
As I have associated with other homeschool families, the constant challenge that parents have is they now have so much more freedom in what they can encourage their children to participate in. And what so many families are finding is that there's just so much that they're actually choking up their lives with extra stuff. And it's all exciting and awesome, but they just feel run ragged. And so for me, it's really just keeping the main thing the main thing. Emily has a couple of hours of desk work each day, and then picking one activity that she can really enjoy each day makes for a much better experience.
Okay, let's have a look at the 3rd most listened to podcast episode on the Happy Families podcast in 2024.
It's 1009, ADHD in toddlers and adults. This is interesting.
Yeah, so again, the boom in interest in anything to do with neurodiversity, ADHD. This episode went gangbusters from a numbers point of view. If you're dealing with ADHD in your life, I'm just going to share 2 quick tips. Keep this one really simple because we could go on about it for ages. And I'm doing this, and please note the irony in my answer. My first part of this answer is, if ADHD is prevalent in your life, just remember with the kids, and even with you, one thing at a time. Don't stuff too much in. One thing at a time. But because I'm me, I have to put a second thing in. See what I've done there? One thing at a time, and I'm going to add 2 things. I can't believe I'm doing it. Active living, diet, exercise, good levels of sleep, minimize screens, just active living. It's associated with reduced ADHD symptomatology, better emotion regulation, and better cognitive function, executive function, that kind of thing. So that's what I would say. Was there anything from the 3rd most listened to episode of the Happy Families podcast this year that you wanted to add?
No, that was actually a really good segue into position number 2.
I like the way you didn't add anything to my list of 1 that became 2. That was very, very thoughtful of you, very, very considerate for all of our ADHD families who are listening. What was the 2nd most listened to podcast episode this year?
1038, Managing Emotional Dysregulation.
So popular. In fact, I'm working on a product for next year to help families who are worried about what I think is the parenting word of the year, dysregulation. Everyone's talking about it. My tip is this one. Whether it's you or your children, emotional dysregulation means high emotions, low intelligence, and we have all those difficulties associated with it. Really simple. Fast is slow, slow is fast. You feel yourself or your children starting to become dysregulated, what happens is you try to speed it up, and that makes everything take longer because everyone gets cranky and everything gets worse. But if you can remember that slow is fast, going slow helps you to be better regulated, which means that you get to think more effectively, which means you get to communicate more effectively, which means your children feel safer, they feel more loved. You're able to solve all the problems in the whole entire world because fast is slow and slow is fast.
So what you're saying is just go and eat.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. How did you get that out of that?
I'm a little bit tongue-in-cheek there, but I know that for our 10-year-old, whenever she gets emotionally dysregulated, more times than not,
because she hasn't eaten.
Yeah,
that ties in with ADHD. I was actually going to say make sure that your ADHD kids are eating. We were talking before, but I didn't want to add 3 things to my list of one that had already become 2. I was going to put that in there. Another thing that I would say though with dysregulation, and that is just being willing to step outside of that situation and say to the kids, as I have said to you many times, I know you're really upset right now. Do you want a hug? Like, do you want me to be with you, or do you just want some space? Do you want me to help? Do you want me to hug? Do you want some space? And that just does wonders for emotional dysregulation. Helps people to pull it back together.
Well, we're finally there.
The moment has arrived.
Position number 1.
Can we have some fanfare, please, JR? Can we have some enthusiasm, please, Mrs. Happy Families?
Drum roll.
Well, JR's already looked after all that good stuff. Okay.
All right. Episode 1055.
Mm-hmm.
Why kids don't listen is the number 1. Literally. Number 1.
Sorry, can you say that again? I was just updating a thing on my computer. What did you say the number 1 episode was?
I think it's why husbands don't listen. But anyway.
Yeah. This is a perennial problem, right?
When I look at the list, we've got screens, we've got ADHD, we've got emotional dysregulation, we've got home work-life balance. Kids not listening, top of the list.
Top of the list.
Top of the list.
We had this episode downloaded so many times because everyone says, why won't my kids listen to me? And
I don't think it matters what age our children are. This is the one thing that ties all parents of all times together. This is the bonding moment.
Kylie, I made the point in the podcast episode, and again, we'll link to it in the show notes, but I made this point really, really clearly, and that is that your children are listening. They just don't like what you're asking them to do because so much of our communication with our kids is correction and direction rather than connection.
I can't ask them everything that they're going to like. Like, I've got to ask them to brush their teeth. I've got to ask them to have a shower. I've got to ask them to pick up their toys. How does this work?
I know. So you can go back and listen to the episode. It was the number 1 episode of the year, so you know you're going to get some good value out of it. But I'm going to share my favorite tip when any parent ever asks me, how do I get my kids to listen? And it is really simple. Make sure that you have their attention before you start talking. So don't shout from the kitchen. Don't shout from your bedroom. Don't shout down the hallway. Go to them, make sure you've got eye contact, sometimes even touch them while you're talking to them, lovingly and kindly. I know they'll look at you like you're a bit strange sometimes, but oh my goodness, it just makes all the difference in the world. That is what you do. Get their attention before you start talking.
5 brilliant topics.
Brilliant topics, brilliant episodes.
Topics.
On a brilliant podcast.
For brilliant parents who
like
just want to be better.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope that you got something out of that. If you'd like to get some more detail on any of those top 5 episodes from the year, like I said, links in the show notes. We would love to be a positive influence in helping your family to thrive. And I reckon the tips, hints and ideas that we've given you today are going to help you do that over the summer break. We're back again tomorrow on the Happy Families podcast, doing what we can to make life happier for you. Thanks so much for listening. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Roulon from Bridge Media. For more products, information and ways to make your family happier, best bet, visit us at happyfamilies.com.au.